Did I press the button? Okay.
You pressed it. Oh wait, I didn't press it.
Right, like I can't see you.
Boom. I'm actually gonna do this. Usually I do one-on-one. I just changed my view. So now you can see both of us.
Okay.
So I
Hi,
usually start.
Jeremie.
Hi, Amatoga. So I usually start these things by describing how I know the other person. But whenever I watch them back, I'm like, just shut up, man. Like people want to hear from the other person on the screen. So not to put you on the spot, but can you just, so the audience knows what the hell's going on and knows that we definitely have not slept together. Uh, can you just describe in your own words, like how we met and the circumstances under which we became friends and yeah, like how we know each other?
Okay. Yeah, our origin story is so cool. We met in high school. We were what? We were sophomores when we got chosen for TAG, the teen advisory group. I think we were sophomores, and then we started serving our junior year, right? But James and I know each other from doing the teen advisory group, where we were trying to delay the first use of substances for young folks ages like 9 to 18. And we were
No,
doing
when you have to tell a 9-year-old, like maybe just like chill on the drug use, like I don't know.
yeah, but that's, I mean, I think that
Happens.
was the
Happens.
reality. 9-year-olds were, they were doing things, they were getting into it. Yeah, we were part of this team. We were selected for, for so many different reasons, our charisma, uniqueness, and nerve. And yeah, and we lost touch for maybe, when we went off to college, we lost touch, and then we reunited now that we're on the board of the foundation board.
Yeah, so we're like on the board of the same organization as like adults
that we
now.
were participating in as young folks, as adolescents.
For sure. And I think something that's been cool for me is Gary, who runs the organization, I think did a great job selecting this group of kids. I mean, we were kids, but we were also different from each other. And yet you and I, and maybe like Clint, or I'm trying to think of a couple of the other people, there were people in that group that brought amazing things to the table, but that weren't extroverts, shall we say. I mean, they were just a little bit more shy or cautious, or they brought other skills. But I think you and I always really bonded over, like, you always had an opinion and I always had an opinion, and it wasn't always the same opinion.
On the opposite sides of the room too.
Right. And we were just like young, opinionated kids. Now we're slightly older, opinionated kids, but I always respected you for that. And I think we kind of had like a bit of a bond over that like we were sort of leaders in our own right. Sometimes we'd agree, sometimes we wouldn't, but we kind of brought the same level of energy. And it's been cool now as adults, as we both matured into ourselves a bit, and there's maybe less, at least on my side of things, less insecurity or less, whatever causes a 16-year-old to be a little hopped up. It's been cool to kind of join a board that, is a little stuck in its ways, as boards tend to be, I think. And we're the kind of fresh blood and the youngest by far, and are bringing that same energy. At least that's been my experience. And it's been cool to kind of carry that torch with you.
You make our friendship sound so amazing.
Yeah.
That is what it is, isn't it?
Most of the people watching this know me, and they know how boring I am. So I'm sure they can extrapolate that it's not that exciting, So, some of these other conversations, I come up with a full-fledged agenda. They're like a couple big ticket items that I feel like the person might want to talk about, or I want to ask them about. And I just called you on the phone. Like, are we still doing this? You were telling me that the grandma went out last night and had 2 drinks, and she's feeling it today.
Like, I cannot keep up with myself, basically.
So we're just gonna figure this out, man.
Process.
We're gonna figure this out. And so I maybe what we can do is lean on the title of the series, which is Thorn and Beach. And it's this idea for those that are just watching the first one, or for you, because this is your first one, The idea is that, you know, everyone has a thorn, sometimes many, in their life, something that's bringing them pain or frustration or holding them back from their goals, or just sort of, my dad always calls it the thorn in your paw. And then everyone, hopefully, not everyone, but I would hope that everyone would have a beach, something that they're sailing towards, something that gets them out of bed every morning, that kind of thing. And it's just kind of interesting to like talk to friends and hear about that. So we could make it super personal about you, or as I said on the phone just before this, we could blow it way up and make it about, you know, I know you care a lot about education. You obviously care about the nonprofit we do work with, and the work that we do there. You know, we've talked a bit. I actually called you when I was dealing with my company's response to Black Lives Matter. And you were like incredibly helpful, and really shaped that, like how we responded, you know? So we could talk about that, you know, so big or small, and I'll kind of, dealer's choice. I'll leave it up to you. Or I guess you're not the dealer, I'm the dealer, but it's your choice. So why don't you talk about a thorn that you're experiencing right now, whether it's something that's very personal to you, or a thorn that you think our country's experiencing more broadly?
Actually, I think my thorn is illustrative of what the country is experiencing, but it would be financial independence, and that's also my beach. So I am that person that, like, of course, the thorn is also the beach, right? But
Wow.
I,
I had this mentor
picking it
once, and
up.
I had this mentor early in my company, and I was like really stressed about something, and he's like a very like Zen dude. He actually changed his name to Gagan, which is like a Buddhist name. Anyway, he's like, dude, like sometimes like the thing you're talking about is medicine, and sometimes it's poison. We'll just have to wait to find out. And he was right, but I was like, dude, I actually need some like actionable advice right now. But your thorns, your
Absolutely, and
beach.
you're traveling with me as I tend to my soup. But yeah, no, that's definitely what it is. I find that but we can have a conversation about medicine a whole other, like another time, because I truly believe that, and it's a lot of guesswork. Western medicine, I don't think that other systems are as like
Corrupted.
working in the dark as we do. I feel like we work in the dark because we don't truly understand our bodies. And I think that that's cultural, that we can trace it back to where we kind of like lost that knowledge of our bodies. But anyway, I
So
agree
wait,
with
hold
your
on.
Buddhist.
I'm really into financial independence recently. I've kind of distanced myself from my family a bit of late, and I've been thinking a lot about my future, and just
As
kind
you
of being
should.
standing on my own 2 feet and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to hear what you have to say about that, and want to talk about that. But I also coincidentally have been I take several medications for mental health reasons,
Mhm.
and um, have thought a lot about big pharma and the efficacy of medications, how they're prescribed, and so on. So I'm very down to have that conversation too. So if you want to, I don't
But
want to
like I
keep
said,
giving you
that's,
too many choices, but I'm interested in all of it.
yeah, but that's like I said, that's not why we're here today. But financial independence really is my thorn. I was just having this conversation with Austin, who's my boyfriend, just reflecting. So there was like this questionnaire of sorts, kind of like how you view money. What is your relationship to money? And just really breaking that down, because not that our finances are intertwined yet, we're not married, but I think it's really important to have a context for how people spend money, their relationships to money, what they think about it, the kind of value that they put on it. And it really helped me to break down kind of everything stems from my like immigrant background, honestly. How I view things is a little different, only because I'm the first generation to grow up here. And what that, and my relationship to money is definitely a product of that. So financial independence.
Really quick on that, Amatoga,
Yeah.
and this might have just been my ignorance or not asking, but my experience of you is that when we were kids, that wasn't something that you led with. And when we kind of reconnected as adults, your heritage and your, you talking about your mother, and I've felt you touch that a lot in our past 5 or 10 conversations. Would you agree that it's something that you've kind of embraced more and made more a part of your identity recently, or that maybe it's something that you've repressed in the past, or was it just me that missed it?
No, that's exactly that. When we were growing up in Princeton, I think that I was different enough. I didn't want to add that to the difference. So I didn't lead with that, even with my own friends. It's something that I like came to terms with in my adulthood, understanding that like a lot of my experience and the things that like my worldviews stems from that, because that's how I mean, that's how I grew up. And I think that in high school, already growing up in outside in an environment where there weren't that many Black people, I'm also like not wealthy. I also don't have this like rooted legacy in this country. You know what I mean? Like I'm actually the beginning of the legacy. Like I have to figure out what that's going to look like. That's a lot of pressure on me, but at 16, 17 years old, I'm not going to lead with that foot. I just want to be like everybody else. And I was really happy that I was chosen to be on tag because, you know, I was a teenager that was doing things. You know, I was a leader, but it didn't have anything to do with all the differences, or at least I thought. I think it did, but like I just felt like, okay, well, like I'm applying for this because I'm like other teams that are doing things in this area, you know? So
Was
no,
that the first time that you felt that way? I mean, did you do things at Stewart before tag that you felt like I'm doing stuff, I'm part of stuff?
yeah, of course. Again, that's part of the legacy. Like I'm the first one. I gotta get everything out of it that I possibly can, because going to Stewart was not like it just, my parents did it, you know what I mean? But at great cost to themselves. It was a huge sacrifice. They are regular people. Like I said, they're immigrants. So like everything they had to like scrape for it. So sending me to Stewart was more of like, if we're going to do anything, we're going to invest in this child. You know, she's going to get us to where we need to go. So I'm basically like the MVP of the family. And so when they sent me to Stewart, I had to take advantage of everything.
Which is, by the way, for those who don't know, a Catholic, preppy, probably 87% white in a very nice part of town school.
We don't want to say
Hey,
97.
97. I don't know. I didn't. It's a girls only school, so I do not know, but I assume.
It may be different now. I think that there's been an influx of Asians in particular, because they rebranded and now they're STEM. But I remember my cohort, I think maybe we were like 4 Black girls by the time we got into high school. That was a big deal. And we acquired an Indian other than Nithya, who also served on tag. And so that was also a big deal. So I still want to say it's like 97% white.
Wow.
And the 3% is Asian. But
Amatoga, with the your parents coming
yeah,
here and like, no, sorry, I'm just poking at things I'm interested in, but you can tell me to shut up
yeah.
at any point. Your parents coming here and the whole immigrant story. My dad, by the way, was an immigrant, and his parents are from Germany and Austria, but he doesn't talk about it much. And so I'm just sort of yeah, I know. So you and I are only one generation removed, but I'm curious. You should have implied or even said that there was a lot of pressure, right? That they sacrificed so much, and then it's like, well, it's all so that you succeed, so you better damn well succeed. Was there a point where it crossed over the binary threshold from being mostly pressure to like mostly opportunity to forge a path and so on? Or was it then, and is it still now, like more of a burden than it is like an opportunity to be the one who leads?
It was always an opportunity, and it was always a burden. Those things were entwined always. And I have a younger brother. He's 23. Yes, he's 23. He's always going to be my baby brother, so I don't keep track of his years. I just know that he's younger than me.
Smaller. Yeah, young or
Right.
younger, not smaller anymore.
Right, because he's definitely bigger than me. Sheesh. But so tall. But anyway, it was always an opportunity to like make it easier for him, and it was always a burden because I just didn't have the license to say that it was hard and I was overwhelmed. You know, I think that he's able to do that. He's able to create space for himself. He can say, listen, I really need to create boundaries with you guys right now. I need to work on myself. And like, you know, when I'm ready, I will come to you. I couldn't say that.
Yeah.
You know? I couldn't say that.
It's amazing how fast that's happened, you know, like I don't even think of your brother as like the next generation. He's only 5-6 years younger than us, you know,
Yeah.
or what, 7 years younger than us. But it's true, you know, like I have interns with my company and I'm always floored at the, you know, on a good day, it's them standing up for themselves, a sense of self, a voice, and I'm enamored by it. And then other times it kind of rubs me as like the way people describe our generation, which is like sort of entitled or like, I'm like, what? Like you're
Right.
like a 20-year-old
I admire it,
intern.
but I'm also like, but you need to put in the work. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but that leads to financial independence because I'm very disruptive. I've always been, even as a kid. So even though I was always compliant and I had my role, because in our culture, I'm the eldest female child of the most responsible. So even though my dad is not the eldest child, because he has taken on the role, he brought everybody here. And so he kind of positioned himself as the sage, as the eldest, because he took on that responsibility. And so me being his child and being the older one and also being a female, there's a lot of pressure for me to do the right thing all the time. And so, and again, was I going to lead with this at 16? No, because I could not articulate this pressure.
Where did all the confidence come from then? Because you were so confident and articulate, and you put yourself out there. Maybe you weren't putting your full self out there, but you certainly weren't.
My representative.
What's that?
I sent my representative.
Yeah.
And she has done great things.
Yeah. So a part of it maybe was a bit of an act, but you sure fooled me. So how did that work? Because on the inside you were maybe feeling a bit, it sounds like like God, a lot of pressure and got a lot to live up to, and you don't maybe know quite who you are yet or what your voice is or how your heritage fits into that. And yet you show up to these meetings with mostly white kids, and you're leading, So where did that come from, do you think?
Because I knew what I had. Like that wasn't an act. Like I was definitely confident in what I could do and how I could say it. And again, that was since I was little. Like I was that kid in preschool that advocated for myself. I was like, I can read. These other kids don't know how to read. So can I go into my corner and like do my thing? I don't want to do noodle paintings right now. But that was me. And my parents gave me the leeway to do that. Like, yes, if she wants to read, let her read. I don't know why you wouldn't let her read,
Totally.
So that's
totally.
Also, my parents are quite supportive. So I'm not blaming them for these feelings of like, for them dumping this on me. I know that is a burden that I had to bear because I'm first generation. I don't think it's personal. I don't think that they're like, Amatoga, you need to do this. It's just more like, we had you here and you kind of have a responsibility to the rest of the family to like be a good example and show them what's possible. I mean, I gladly take on that mantle, but again, my other cousins or like even my little brother will probably tell you something different, but I'm okay with that.
I just have one more question. It's sort of a provocative one, so I'm interested to see how you respond.
Okay.
And then we can double click on the financial independence, because I'm here to learn, man. I want financial independence.
I know. We've had a really long gap of like not talking. It's this is also our like catch up time.
I'm a little embarrassed, to be honest, that I'm 30 goddamn years old, and financial independence is very high on my list right now, but it wasn't a year ago today, and
No, it
it's
wasn't.
something. So, and I feel like I'm a little late to that. So I definitely want to hear
You're
what
not.
you have to say on that. But I'm curious, and again, I'm gonna. It's a little provocative, but I do think they're parallels. So I'm curious.
Okay.
You know, most like I went to Princeton Day School, which was a short walk
Our
from
neighbor
where you
rival?
went, our neighbor rival, which was a co-ed school, but same sort of thing. I think it's changed a lot since then, like you said, but whatever, 90% white. And so most of my friends, in fact, I only had one really close friend who was black when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anyway, so a bunch of the guys, we all moved all over the country, and I'm still very close with my high school crew. And all of a sudden, everyone's back in New York, and it's like this dream that we all had as kids, and it's
Yeah.
it's been really cool. So we've been kind of catching up, and a big topic of conversation is the pressure um, of growing up in Princeton, of going to PDS, of being raised in households with successful parents that had high expectations. Except the vibe in that room, again, it's sort of a provocative thought, is sort of like you come from a successful family or a family that's been in this country a while and has succeeded in this country for a while, or you come from money or you come from prestige, don't fuck it up. And so it's sort of the other side of the same coin, which is like, it's not like you're the first one here, so like set the tone. It's like there's a long line of people that haven't fucked it up, and like you better not be the first one to fuck it up. And I wonder if you ever felt, maybe as you started to acknowledge this pressure and maybe talked about it to your closest friends or whatever, like the preppy ass white girls that you were in school with that had entitlement and had been in this country for 5 generations and whatever, it's totally different. But did you ever find yourself empathizing with them or vice versa, or did it always feel very foreign?
I think now I empathize a lot more because I've always been reflective, but now I'm kind of just being intentional in doing so. And I realize that yes, it is the same coin, different sides of the same coin. But the difference is that there is room for you to mess up. Whereas for me, I couldn't, you know? I think that like I'm probably messing up more now because I'm in charge, again, financial independence. I'm in charge of my own life financially. And so if I mess up, the consequences are going to be on me. But when I was under my parents' roof and they were supporting me, like I did have to do, what they wanted or what they had foreseen. And I still didn't do that because if I did, I probably would have been a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, because those are the only three careers that a Haitian can go into. Like for the traditional Haitian household, you have 3 options, maybe architecture.
Whoa.
And I didn't do any of those things.
See, curveball, baby. I love
Yeah,
that. Okay.
so I
Well, now
definitely,
that we've used the coin imagery, this just strikes me as a good segue to talk about financial independence. So you literally just picked your life up and moved. You lived in the greater Princeton area for like pretty much your whole life, right? And then boom, you're in during COVID, you get a job in DC, pack up all your shit, kind of, right? Because you kind of moved into I called you once and you're like, I'm in an empty apartment, kind of like, where's my shit?
as you hear the echoes, I know it was so empty. But like
Um,
now it's not so much. So
right. There's at least soup. So okay, so you pick up, you move to DC, you have a job, you're gainfully employed, you have a boyfriend, you're a bona fide adult now, and you're making your own money.
right.
So yeah, you talk to me about that, and like maybe some of you sort of implied that freedom has come with that, because now if God forbid you fuck up, like, you whatever margin you go into is your own savings or your own, you know. So what is that like?
Yeah, no, I think, okay. I mean, on paper, I've been financially independent probably since I was 22, right? Like I did my Fulbright in Columbia and I was a teacher, so I was getting paid and I was doing my own thing. And then I came back to the US and I got into the New York City Teaching Fellows. And that was That was a degree that was paid for. So I've always been very smart about getting money for my skills because that's what I was taught to do. But in terms of like having an abundance, you know what I mean? Like getting myself there. Maybe I should have like rephrased that to really financial abundance, because I've been independent and I've been always been able to support myself. But I think it's more so I'm looking for abundance and getting past the subsistence farming. Like, you know, like I need like, I'm really much more interested in like the surplus farming now, instead of just like, you know, doing what I like and kind of being compensated minimally for it, versus like, actually I bring quite a skill set.
Yes.
In addition to charisma, and I should be paid for that. And so how can I do that? And I think
quickly, what is the abundance for, if you don't mind me asking? Like, is it just peace of mind, or do you have like things that you want to do with that money?
no, I have things that I want to do with that money. It's more so like I want to be able to. Do you really want to know what I want to do with the money?
Well, I don't want to pry, but I'm curious. You don't have to share if you don't want to.
Yeah, I just, no, I do. Like, I mean, it's not something that I talk about often because it's just like in my Word doc of things to do when you get money. But it's more so like,
do you have a Word doc?
oh yeah, of course. And it's like,
I have one. I have one too on my homepage. It literally says life plan, and I'm like,
yeah.
I'm
And
hashtag 30 years old.
it's a thing. And like my brother and I have like a shared doc on Google Docs that's called Life Goals and Motivations. And like we update it, you know, we update it as we see fit, but like it's also just to keep each other accountable too. Kind of like, I don't need to yell at you at this point, CJ, but I did see that this hasn't been updated on your part.
Oh,
so like
you're quietly yelling at him. I like that.
Right.
Very subtle.
Right. I don't need to be sister mom anymore. I just need to see your revision history.
That's right. That's right. Very modern.
Yeah, we're techie. But
okay, so, or if not the specific thing, maybe just give me like a flavor, like the zip
no,
code.
I just want to be a benefactor. Like again, you coined it. Like I've always been into education. I became a teacher for a reason, because it's not my profession. It's more of my vocation. It's what I do. I will always be a teacher, and it's really I know what studying abroad did for me. At Stewart, you know, it was a program that I guess like, because all the rich white kids didn't really need that, they didn't take advantage of the program. But Sacred Heart schools are all over the world, and you can choose to study at any of these schools all over the world. And I wanted to see the world, and I knew that like if it was up to like my parents doing it, like a vacation in Japan, like that wasn't happening. I knew that.
Where did you go in Colombia?
Oh, that was no. At Stewart, I studied abroad in Madrid. That's where actually I went on a trip to Italy, and then the following year I studied abroad in Madrid. So I took advantage of like I told you, every single program that they had. They had it. I did it. Even if I wasn't
even tag,
but I did it.
Even tag. What was I gonna say? So
Fulbright, that was college.
Okay, cool. I did. I might be going to Cartagena.
Cartagena? You'll really enjoy it. It's
well, during COVID though, so I'm gonna be like a monk in Cartagena, but I'm still excited.
We can talk about it. Because
so tell me about, you know, what I'm interested in is you are so smart and formidable and confident and
thanks,
yeah, like and like, you know, something that was never even on the table for me. My dad worked in banking, and I kind of saw that growing up, and I was like, that's not for me. And then, you know, when I went to college, like that's a lot of who was recruiting from Princeton. And so there'd be like, you know, around the dinner table, everyone would be like, oh, tomorrow's, you know, the JP Morgan this or the Bain Consulting that. And I'd be like, ugh, like, fuck that. Like it never was remotely on the radar. But, you know, if you're relatively smart and capable, going and making 130, 40, 50K out of college, like you could have done that. Even within education, like real quick, like, you know, I was like, I need to be true to myself, just like you've been true to yourself. and I'm a creative guy. So I went into advertising, and I did 17 interviews. And in like late September out of college, I got my first job. I got 16 no's, and I got my first job offer at the 17th at the second largest ad agency in the world. This huge, massive building on Madison Avenue. They've been around for 100 years. And so I'm like, okay, I went to Princeton. I'm a smart guy. Got a job at this like big glitzy, famous ad agency that all my parents' friends have heard of and so on. Young and Rubicam. And my starting salary was
Peanuts.
38 grand a year.
Yeah, peanuts.
Yeah. And then I worked my ass off, and I got a raise to 45 grand a year. And like,
Oh my
I
gosh.
was just kind of thinking the other day, like if I'd stayed on that track and really worked my ass off and been there for 6 or 7 years, which like you can't do that at that institution without like the majority of your soul just turning into ashes. I'd be making like 85, 90, 95K, which is nothing to sneeze at, but is certain, like my friends that went into banking and consulting were there the first year out. Right. And so just to really quickly sharpen this into a point, I'm sorry for rambling. So I've started a company, and part of the way we make money is I consult as a marketer, basically. Just want to make sure you don't miss. Can you hear me?
I'm plugging in my charger because this is really
Oh,
interesting.
charger. Got it.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting to, Amatoga, is like there's like marketing, which is like at a big ad agency. And then there's like marketing in 2020, which is basically like taking the same mind, me, and like, I can bill myself at $150 an hour, which is 300K a year, running Facebook ads or doing SEO for companies, or like a lot of, sort of 2020 marketing, like very tangible things that businesses need to drive sales. And so the same mind, the same talent, the same skill set at an ad agency right now would be making 85K. And if I was a full-blown consultant doing Facebook ads all hours of the day, I'd be making 300K a year. So my question to you after all of that buildup is, okay, I hear you. I'm assuming that you went into education because it's something that you feel deeply passionate about, and you've been nothing but an authentic person in my experience of you. But why not sharpen it into something? If financial independence or financial surplus is the goal, why not sharpen it into something that makes twice as much as you're currently making as someone who's so very talented? Why relegate yourself? Is that something you grapple with?
Yeah. And I'm at that point now. So, again, it wasn't something that I could think about because I had to set the example and I had to be compliant, and I couldn't rock the boat because rocking the boat would kind of like bring my whole family down, kind of, you know what I mean? We couldn't afford, like, there's a reason why there aren't that many Black people, Black women, whatever, in certain industries like the arts, because like literally your family cannot afford to support you in that endeavor.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is that if they are going to invest in your mind, they're going to sharpen it to become that lawyer, doctor, engineer, right? They're going to put you in the activities that make you that. And so that's what happened. And then I was just like, guys, but I don't want to do it. So I became a teacher, not because like I'm seeing now, so I used to downplay that skill, and I'm seeing now that like the skill.
What skill?
Teaching. I'm sorry?
What skill?
Like just teaching, like what that recalls, because there are different kinds of teachers, right? Not every teacher is created equally. Not every teacher is as reflective of their practice, like truly understands their student. Like, you have the teacher that is just kind of there getting that paycheck. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, they like the hours and they like the vacation time. And then you have a teacher that's like me, that's like, actually, I'm trying to like change the world through my teaching.
Yeah. I want to like mold these kids.
Yeah, no, like there's a reason for me to be here, like there's purpose. And then there's like everybody in between. So I don't want to say that all teachers are created equally either, but I'm learning that what made me an effective educator is like I could monetize those skills that made me an effective educator. And yeah, I have a government job, and then I got here and I was just like, this is not the way to change the world. It's ironically, it's not through
It's
working.
fucking slow,
like,
man.
That's not the way to do it.
Yo, you said big pharma was another conversation. You want to talk about how, you know, you like in a lot of countries, the best and brightest go into government, and like it's an honor, right? To like in France or in other countries, you know, and here it's like, you know, you it's sort of a dead end. Like you take someone who burns as bright as you do, that flame, and that like you emit so much, and you put that in a very slow moving bureaucratic thing with a lot of rules and regulations and processes, and your flame can sort of get snuffed out if you're not careful.
Oh no, that's exact. Oh, and there are people who are like, it's almost like, is it in your job description to like put out my flame? Is that why you were hired? Because I feel like you're not.
There's this thing that happened because I've worked with governmental agencies in advertising capacities, and it's like I think there is this thing of like and it's even the board we're working on, you know, there's this sort of like slow down, kid, like what you trying to make the rest of us look bad. Like my dad worked in a factory, and he for a couple summers when he was in college, and he always talks about it, and he, you know, he's like, he wanted to be good, right? He wanted to be good at his job and like move faster, or like come up with ways to like, you know, hack the system and like make it work better. And a bunch of the old timers would be like, kid, like what the fuck are you doing? Like they pay us the same whether we make twice as much or not, so like stop making the rest of us look bad kind of attitude.
Right.
And which makes sense, but it's also like if you're that hungry young person, it's your flame gets put out.
Yeah, but it's also, so there's a couple things there. So now that I'm here in government, like I will never forget, one of my teammates, I don't know, this stuck with me. She was like, the last time I was ambitious was 7 years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, she put a time stamp on her ambition. You know, that scared me. And she was like, I went for the supervisory position, and our now supervisor is who she went up against for the position. And she's like, yeah, I had like a shred of ambition. I wanted to change things. I thought that like, you know, that role would have allowed me to do so. And then Monica, you know, beat me out. And like, honestly, that was a really good choice. And then since then, I haven't really rocked the boat because I really just want to retire here. Like I'm married, I have a kid, and I just wouldn't.
Yikes.
And like, she probably didn't know what that did to me, you know, like psychically, but I was like, you're content where you are, you know, and that's okay. And then I had to learn that that was okay. But then I also had to know that like me wanting to move and shake is also okay. That needs to be okay. And if you're not going to honor it in this place, then I don't need to work here. So it's also knowing my worth too. And I think that that's taken me a long time. It's one thing to be smart. It's one thing to have taken advantage of every single program in doing this, but it's also understanding what you bring to the table and knowing that like I can bring it to somebody else's table and they'll want it. You know what I mean?
That's a cool feeling. That's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
You know? I just two quick things to say. One is just a quick thing about me, and then the other is a quick allegory that you can tell all your bureaucratic friends. And then I'll try to shut up. The quick thing about me is, with my therapist, I've been using, my dad used this phrase once, which I've always like riding up in the saddle or riding back in the saddle. Like you, the kind of person that like kind of, you know, are you, right? And you and I both ride up in the saddle, right? But for me, something I've realized is I still like, to the untrained eye, right? Like even to you or like someone who sees me in a public forum, I still ride up in the saddle. But very recently, I'm talking like the past 3 or 4 months, there's been a transition for me where I used to ride up in the saddle because I was very insecure. And I just sort of thought that if I did this, like I'm actually going to do it to the camera, and I leaned forward and kind of crowded your perspective of me, that you would see me as that projection, and you wouldn't see the scared shitless kid behind that, right?
Mhm.
And just something about, I'm on a new medication, which has helped a lot. I've been doing a lot of therapy, a lot of work on myself, and there's just been a new level of self-love and acceptance that I've reached. And so I'm riding up now, but I'm riding up because I'm just like stoked. I like just want to lean into the things that are bringing me joy and the people that are bringing me joy. So I think people are experiencing me the same way, but the way I'm experiencing the world could not be more different. And the last evolution of that, though, that I talk about with my therapist is like, the people I admire most are actually the ones that can ride back a little bit. Why? Because like, you knew back then when we were kids that you had something great inside you, right? And now you're leaning forward because you really know and you want to get it out there. But at some point, you'll have gotten it out there a decent amount. You'll really know in your heart of hearts, in your bones, that you are great. And you know what? You can kind of like, it doesn't mean you're not trying or not ambitious, but there's a calm confidence. It doesn't have to be so frontal and intense, and you can just sort of be a little bit more. And at least that's where I'm aiming. And then the quick allegory, and then I want to ask you one or two more questions and then let you eat your soup. The allegory I like is, I don't know if this is a true story or not, Amatoga, but it was told to me as if it were, that it was a study at Stanford. So let's say it is, where they had 5 monkeys in a cage, okay? Every good study has them.
It has like monkeys, of course.
Yeah, yeah, maybe even chimpanzees. And they're in the cage, and there's a ladder that goes up to a little platform with bananas on it. And the moderators of the experience have a hose with a nozzle that can like squirt water. And so the monkeys are just sort of playing, and one of them notices the bananas, and they start sort of climbing the ladder. And when they get close to the top, the moderator of the experiment sprays all the monkeys. And then they try it again a few minutes later, they get sprayed. Try it again. So they get conditioned, like, you climb the ladder, you get sprayed. Don't fucking climb the ladder.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Then the moderator takes out one of the sopping wet chimpanzees and puts in a dry one that has never been in this cage before. And the dry one, after a few minutes, is like, oh, sick, there's some bananas, and starts climbing. And the 4 other ones are like, what the fuck are you? And they grab him and pull his ass down, because they're like, dude,
you're gonna get sprayed.
And you're gonna get us sprayed, motherfucker. Like, don't climb the ladder. Are you kidding me? And the guy's like, guys, what the hell? And he tries again, same thing. Okay, I won't climb the ladder, fine. And then they replace one of the 4 remaining wet ones with another dry one. Same thing happens. Replace. And now there are 5 dry chimpanzees in the cage. Okay. And they're all looking up at the bananas, and they're like, yeah, we're not gonna go up there. And none of them have been sprayed. Like, there's no punishment. But they just were taught by the old monkeys that you don't do that shit.
Right.
They don't do that shit.
Right.
And when I'm in a bureaucracy, I always think of that story of like, they're just people that are frozen in place, and they like, maybe they were conditioned 7 years ago, or maybe they had a mentor who was conditioned 14 years ago, or mentor's mentor. But there's this like inherited fear of the unknown, which is so antithetical to my entrepreneurial experience and my spirit, and I think yours, which is like, lean in, try stuff, fail, like, and it's so sad that you just sort of inherit this fear of trying and of putting yourself out there. So what the fuck are you gonna do?
So I've always agitated, but I've always been an agitator that knows how to read the room. Like, I'm really good at delivery. It's not like that I'm going to be out there and just like shake shit up. Like, I never do that, because that's not what the room asked for. But that's what I'm going to continue to do. I'm sorry. I'm going to be the monkey that's going to keep trying to get the bananas, because I will be more fulfilled in trying to get the bananas, knowing that I did everything I could possibly do, rather than sitting in the corner being like, yo, man, every time I try to get those bananas, like, they just keep spraying me. So I'm not going to try. That's not me. It's just not.
Do you have a sense, Amatoga, of like what fulfillment within this domain would be? Like, say like 10 years from now or something, like, what room are you in, or what change are you affecting? Like, you said you wanted to change the world. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I just thought about this and conceived an idea that can get me to that point. That was last weekend, and I think I'm starting to kind of it's starting to materialize. Like I can put words to it and see like what I can actually do. But it took me a long time to get here. I feel like there are people who probably knew this way before, but um, I changing the world can look like very many different things, but I needed to see what I can do. Like, how can I do that? What is within my grasp to do that? And of course, it's going to be an education, and because that's just what I do. But it's still I still need time to kind of articulate what that looks like and what that can look like, because it's not just one thing. I need time.
Do you
But
think the government path is going to get you there, or
oh
is
yeah,
this
absolutely.
okay? Okay.
Absolutely. I think that was the catalyst, because I got here. I've been trying to get here for a really long time. I thought that that's what I wanted, and I got here, and then probably like a month later I was like, I don't think this is what I mm.
Not
That's
for me.
literally like I'm like, oh, I don't think I want to be here. I worked so hard to get here, and I got here, and it's just like, ugh, this sucks.
So wait, I'm so confused because you said like 3 or 4 things that make me feel like you're going to quit tomorrow, but then you're saying this is all part of the plan. So
It is.
h-
I have to be here. Yeah.
you have to be here. How much of that is like the Amatoga we talked about at the start of this call, which was like, you know, I'm not really fucking with this like 14-year-old, the rules that you had to live in because of your Haitian parents and because you were at Stewart and so on, but I'll like make do with what the hand that I've been dealt kind of thing, and I'll carry the torch because I have to. Um, like, do you feel like you have to see this through because you started it, or you want to see this through?
Opportunity and burden. This position is no different. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to make connections. It's an opportunity to kind of like really it's strategy, right? Like I can sit here and it's like a panopticon. Like I am here in this tower and I have so much perspective.
A panopticon?
Yeah, panopticon. You know Jeremy Bentham's. Okay, anyway.
Oh my God, you're a goddamn teacher.
Like think of it as like the prison tower.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tower is interesting because no one really knows if there's actually a human being that is vigilant. But the fact that there's this structure that was created
Watching over you.
exactly to watch over you, it kind of that's what influences your behavior. But there's also a lot of perspective because of where it's placed.
Right.
Like it sees everything. You don't know what it is. You don't know if it's a person. You don't know if it's now with technology. You just know that it's the panopticon and it sees what I'm doing, essentially. So I feel as though this position is a panopticon. Like I, not that
It's putting you in a position where you can sort of pivot and go anywhere or see it all.
exactly, because there's something that I need to learn. Like I got in here because there's something that I need to get from here. And I will know when my time is up. Just like I knew my time was up in New York City teaching. I knew when my time was up in Haiti when I was teaching. I know when my time is up. But like I'm here because there's something that I need to get in order to be successful in like the next leg of my journey. So
I'm gonna talk. I just want to pause really quick because I think that's so powerful. You know, what's so cool to me about what you just said is like you have this confidence thumping inside your chest, you know, and I think for a lot of people, I had an intern that quit this summer, and I was like, okay, but like really, like I just never would have had the courage to do that and to like have that gap on my resume or like God forbid, right? I would have just seen it through, right? But the fact that you're sort of saying, I have this thumping in my chest and I got to go somewhere and I have a vision of where it is and so on. I show up in a place that isn't quite what I thought it was going to be. It's not fulfilling me as much as I thought it might. I think a lot of people would have with the former, with the like, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go, would have bounced. And the fact that you have inside you both the confidence of, I know I'm going somewhere great, and the humbleness of, I need to learn a lesson from this challenging circumstance, I think is really cool, you know? And it's hard to have both, I think.
I didn't think of it like that, but thanks. But it's true. You are seldom put into a role or a position or an experience. There's always a reason for that, and you have to recognize it, even if it really sucks or if it's not something that you expected. There's always something to be learned, whether it's something that you want, you learn what you want, but I think it's even more valuable to know what you don't want. That's with relationships, that's with jobs, that's with, anything that you do.
Yeah.
It's very valuable.
But you really do need both this confidence and the humbleness, though, because the young woman you referenced that said, like, yeah, 7 years ago, man, like that's when it all ended for me. If you don't have the confidence of self and the clarity of voice, you don't know when you've been wronged. You don't know when to walk away, like you said, right? You just sort of sit there and take it, and you're like, I guess I'll just kind of punch the clock for the next 20 years. So like, if you don't have the confidence, then you get stuck in the hole. And if you have too much confidence, then you're like, I have nothing to learn. I'm the fucking best. And you bounce. And so it takes someone who's quite centered to be like, I have the confidence to know I'm going somewhere else, but also the patience and the humility to stay and learn the lesson I have to learn. So it's pretty cool that you have both of those in my book.
Thanks. I call it calculated risk, but that sounds a lot better. I like your.
I'm trying to make you into a full-on enlightened, Amatoga. Calculated risk isn't bad though. Yeah. Okay. Well, I told someone I'd call them in literally 5 minutes, and also these have been running way too long. So maybe with the last 5 minutes, unless there's something else you want to talk about, I'm curious, like the blocking and tackling of financial independence or surplus, which is to say, like, let's say there's some schmuck like me who, watching, who has only just started taking this stuff seriously. I don't know if you've heard of the FIRE movement, for example, but I recommend people Google that, or like, learning how to set up a brokerage account, and like, what's a balanced brokerage account with 60% equities and 40% bonds and like all that shit, right? Are there certain blocking and tackling things like that you could recommend to people watching that want to achieve financial independence in less of a heady way and in more of like maybe they want to save up for a car or a wedding ring or whatever, but how would you recommend they go about doing that?
Honestly, you can come up with like a really sexy name for it, but it really is what does financial independence look like for you? And you need to determine what steps you need to take to get there. Because with any kind of method, I feel like any method, I'm constantly revising it to fit me. And so I would recommend all of them, right? Because take a look at all of them and see what's out there, see what your options are, and you pull from each one to create your own steps to financial independence. But that's just how I like function in the world. I'm constantly.
So instead of that big ass answer, let me try to give one, and you tell me what you think.
Well, that's just me.
I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm just giving you a hard time. So something that I've done that it's sort of a truism, right? But I've been really leaning into this. Like we were joking before. Sorry, did I offend you?
No.
I'm just giving you shit. For old time's sake. That was for some time that you were mean to me when we were 16. So you probably were. I was probably mean to you too. This is such a truism, right? But we were joking before we got on the video here about, how much of a monk I've turned into during COVID. Like I've just kind of cut out all these things in my life. I'm in, my mom is an architect, and she renovated, this is a chicken coop that I'm in. It had 10,000 chickens in it when they bought the farm. And now it's her architecture studio. It's super cool. And I sleep in there. and I just kind of walk back and forth, and that's about it. And I don't really I haven't worn deodorant in a couple weeks. I go to bed at 8. I wake up at 4. I'm drinking more coffee than a human should. And my friend asked me dude, are you pissing in bottles and shit? Should I be worried about you? I told you this. But I'm rambling. But the point is, I've been trying this thing during COVID, right? Because what is COVID? Some people have gotten really sick and died, and some people have lost their jobs, and terrible things are happening. But for those who aren't affected quite that extremely, say you and me, things that we were spending our time doing have been taken away from us, right? I'm just not socializing as much, and I'm not in New York going out for $15 cocktails, and I'm not dating, and I'm not a lot of these things, right? And so my world has become a lot smaller. And so something I've been really leaning into during COVID is and depression has helped me with this too. I have this antenna of what brings me joy, really subtle shit. If I walk into a room that's a little too hot, I'm ooh, I'm 1% less happy. Ooh, or oh, that was a really good bite of chicken, or, little things. And so I've been getting really sensitive with the knobs of fine tuning. When things bring me joy, I turn them up a little bit. And when things don't bring me joy, I turn them down a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're wondering what the fuck this has to do with anything. And the answer, I hope, is that for me, saving, a big part of financial independence has been not making more, but just living off of less, being more modest and cutting back. Right. Yeah. And I've started checking myself on the things that I was spending money on and if they actually brought me joy. Yeah. And so as part of COVID, it's just been turn down the knobs, not just a little bit, to off anything that isn't fully filling me up or making me a happy person. And some of those things, I haven't had a sip of alcohol in 6 months. Some of those things just, yeah. And it's not because I had a problem. I just realized it wasn't really adding anything. So I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone here, which my advice to people listening would be identify the things in your life that aren't bringing you joy that you're spending time on, and cut them off cold turkey, and as an experiment for a month or two. You can always add them back. You can always go back to drinking. You can always do this. You can always do that. But if you cut out 2 or 3 things that are in your life and should not be because they're making you a little bit less happy, cut them the fuck out. And you might just end up saving $500 a month, and that's what's been going into my brokerage account.
Yeah, of course. So I definitely agree with you. I think it also goes back to, again, that's what you need to do,
Yeah.
Somebody else, that may not be the path for them, but I completely agree. I think that less is more. I've loved quarantine, and I think I judge myself a little bit for loving it so much, but I like being with myself, and I think that it was really scary for a lot of people to be with themselves, because that wasn't required before. It's something that you can escape with the going out for drinks and, being in the workplace and doing whatever else that you do between when you wake up and when you go to sleep. I just always, the only person I really truly trust is myself. So I have no problem being here and reflecting and thinking about the things that I want to do with my life. I think it's actually quite a wonderful creative space to be in, quarantine.
I agree.
I've come up with so many fabulous things in quarantine that I would never be able to think about.
People pay thousands of dollars to go to Thailand on silent meditations, and here we are on our own silent meditation, and I get to Zoom with you.
Right.
And wish I wouldn't be able to do if I was on
the best inventions or the best things were created during some sort of quarantine. If you really look in history, this is not the first time that people have been creative geniuses when they are on lockdown. So
Amatoga, I'm getting soup is ready vibes because you keep looking over your left shoulder.
Because it's bubbling up, but you know how beans are. It's depending on the bean. It just
those beans.
These
human
are Great
beans.
Northern beans, which not my favorite.
What kind of beans?
Great Northern, creamy, but not my favorite.
I don't think I've ever. You know what? I have once bragged out loud that if I were on the show Jeopardy, which I would be terrible at, and there was a cooking section, a cooking category, I would know every question guaranteed. I would bet my life on it.
Except for these Great Northerns. You didn't seem to know.
Except I was about to say, except apparently beans are my Achilles heel. So I'm gonna have to do some research.
No,
Um,
you do. It's also like it's how I feel about like Americans and rice. It's just like when you grow up in a Caribbean household, there are certain things that you know really well. And there's three things: rice
do you
varietal, beans, and root vegetables.
Well, you know what? I'm going to leave you with this thought just because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to project on you. Maybe you need to help us dumbass Americans, like, because like Americans know about like probably what Chipotle's taught them about beans, like black or pinto, or like, like they know like 3 or 4 options, you know what I mean? So maybe you need to bring some like, because like rice, for example, has had a big coming of age moment where like, there are a lot of rice varietals that are on the market that were not when we were kids, right? There was kind of like white rice and maybe brown. And now there's, very readily you can eat red rice or forbidden rice or whatever. So maybe you need to bring a bean to market, which sounds like a children's book.
I would totally love to do voiceovers for.
Bring a bean to market. But bring a bean to market, and that can be your side hustle that just funds your education travels. You know what I mean? So give me a call when you got yourself a bean. I will help you market that bean.
Yeah, I do have like my favorite beans, but I that's also like, but you're a farmer. You come from like a kind of
I
a,
know I'm looking at a garden, but there aren't any Great Northerns out here.
but you have like your knowledge of certain things and like what they do. Like I think secretly a lot of Caribbeans are like herbalists only because we love modern medicine for what it is, but we always try to like mitigate illness with
The
herbs.
natural way, man. Yeah, for sure. I'm actually literally the reason I was 5 minutes late in calling you is because I'm working with a new client who it's amazing. It's flying off the shelves and it's been really exciting to work on. But it's do you know what Ayurvedic medicine is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, and we should wrap it because I could talk to you for hours, and I have talked to people for hours on this thing, and I'm like, there's no way someone's watching for 2 hours, as much as I'm enjoying this. So Ayurvedic medicine is, for those of you who don't know, as Amatoga seems to, the way it was described to me is basically like sort of yoga has gone mainstream, meditation has gone mainstream, and from the same sort of corners of Eastern thought is Ayurvedic sort of diet or medicine, which is basically just extracting value for your body from plants. And so like some of the popular ones that people might have heard of are like ashwagandha or certainly like turmeric or things like that. And so this young lady, Smrita is her name. She's like actually, I think you'd like her. She has your energy. She's badass, super smart. You'd make a great entrepreneur, actually, I feel. But anyway, she was working in banking and sort of same as you, got into like a bureaucratic environment and was feeling kind of stifled and was like, fuck it. And her heritage, which she had sort of repressed as well, she was raised, she's Indian and she was raised with Ayurvedic medicine. And so she started basically a supplement company with all kinds of Ayurvedic herbs. And you take a quiz when you go to the website and it tells you what your dosha is, which is sort of your metabolic, your way that your body processes stress and so on. So it's super cool because you learn about your body and how it functions, and then it recommends a certain blend of spices for you. So I've been taking them every morning, and I think I've gotten handsomer. I don't know.
I think that there's like balance. Like there are certain things that no, we definitely need modern medicine to like address, but a lot of the kind of like preventive measures, like that could be done
with
herbally.
those. Indeed.
With herbs, yeah.
Indeed. All right, Amatoga, I'm going to let you get to your beans. This has been a pleasure. I keep saying to people, listen, we might have to do episode 2, episode 3, because this was about financial independence, but I could talk about big pharma all damn day. We could talk about drugs and alcohol and the training we've had there, a million other things. So if you find yourself not enjoying the silence of your own company and wanting to chat, give me a topic, shoot me a Zoom. It's great to talk to you.
You can always call me James. I'm
Thanks,
always
Amatoga. Thanks. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.